Hey bike farmers, thanks for clicking in. In this video, we're gonna refurbish this Giant Cypress for resale in my used bike shop. For me, refurbishing a bike means cleaning, lubing, and adjusting all of the major systems and then replacing any of the worn out parts. A lot of the time when we get to the end, these bikes are better than brand new. All right, let's take a closer look at this project. One of the first things we notice here is it's pretty dirty. The chain looks really dry, but behind the filth is a really good bike. These are some nice Continental tires with lots of life left in them. The brake pads look to be decent. I think maybe it had been ridden on some wet, muddy roads. You can see under here, there's some chunks. But beyond that, I don't think it's really ever been left out in the winter or anything like that. So this one's gonna be a lot of cleaning, a little bit of rust going on there. We might be able to hit that with a brass brush. Can clean up that little bit of corrosion on the handlebars. No bigs. I think all in all, this one's gonna come around nicely. It's an interesting size, this here Giant Cypress. Extra large step through. So these bikes aren't the easiest to sell. You need a really tall woman or a tall man looking for a step through. So, that said, it's a good one. I really enjoy Giant Cypresses. I think they have always been, and especially today, the new ones are incredible. They're just a crown jewel of the bicycle industry. Very practical, nice, durable, practical bike. Love them. So let's get started. Okay, per the usual, one of the first things I do is take the wheels off, disconnect the rear brake, disconnect the front brake. So when you put the lever straight up your fork like this, it's really hard to get your fingers back there and take it off. So don't do that. I usually have mine going straight back. The thought there is if you kick up a stick or anything, it's gonna close it. If you have it this way, it could, or you know, if you have it like this way, it could open it. Anyway. The forks have this little indentation or a lip. We call it a lawyer lip. And that's just in case that does flip open, that the wheel doesn't fall out of the bike. Put the bike in the highest gear there, little cog. And it comes out a lot. Oh, this one's got lawyer lips in the back. Imagine that. How about that right there? You don't see that very often. The rear wheel, it doesn't matter. That one falls off, you just skid to a stop. I shouldn't say it doesn't matter. It matters less. Okay, it's time to make a big decision. I'm gonna put it in the little gear in front too. What do we clean it with? It's mostly dust, it's not grease. So I'm gonna go straight to the furniture polish. And behold, we have some right here. And this isn't a super filthy bike, so this isn't a super filthy rag. Perfect for what we're about to do. Actually, let's take this bottle cage off quick. Just a couple 5mm bolts. Oops, alrighty. work on some wheels. Again, just dusty. So we're gonna clean them first. This is my general method of cleaning. Get the other side. I'll go through in between each pair of spokes here. Okay, I wipe every spoke. I think it really makes a difference. And then we'll check for trueness. So these hoopster rims were really popular back in the late 90s. But they're pretty soft, so they always need a little touching up. So what I'm doing is loosening that spoke and tightening the other one next to it. I'm going to loosen this one, and then you see me backing that wrench off, the spoke wind up. So when you turn it, the spokes are actually winding up a little bit, so you have to just do a smidge the other way. It takes that force out of there, so just boop, just a little bit. Find its equilibrium. There's a point with most of the bikes that I work on that you're really just splitting hairs, and close enough is good enough. You just don't want the brakes rubbing. Then I just check the other side to see if there's anything funny going on. There's a little spot there I can take out. Oh, what was that? I mean, it's not worth thinking about. So that one's good enough. We'll do the same with the front. Same exact process. Okay, back over on the bike. I'll grab my bottle of Tri-Flow. Let's lube these cables. So here's a little easy trick. Boom, that cable's out. And you can see here, maybe, that there's a bit of grime and filth and dryness in that piece of housing. I think as far as shifting goes, that's probably the most important piece of housing. And then underneath, which is really hard shot to get unless I move everything. With the cable loose, you can just undo all your cables and just put a little bit of lube right there. That little bit is probably going to make the biggest difference. Well, that and the rear brake cable, which we can do right now. So that one we can disconnect back here. What happens with these guys is moisture, no matter what you do, is going to get down in here. And then it corrodes right there. Get as much slack as we can here. And if we can slide this piece of housing down, we can get in there. It's really dry. So this bike's been stored well, so it's not so bad. But that's always the spot that you want to make sure it's good and gooped up. And then this fresh lube will keep things from corroding in the future too. Yeah, these cables are dry. Well, I always turn my barrel adjusters all the way in on my refurbishing too. Don't forget to lube your noodle. So I'm just holding the noodle here and squeezing. Holding and squeezing, lubing the noodle. Drop some lube down in the pivot and I wiggle it back and forth, like up and down. And then drop some back here in the spring too. Okay, everything's dry on this bike, so we just put a little bit of lube everywhere we go. Put a little bit here. Okay, so in the front, I don't know, I think I'm gonna have to loosen this cable up because I know it's bone dry in there based on the rest of the bike. We can lube up the brakes just like we did in the rear. I'm gonna drop some lube on that anchor bolt as well. That'll help me when I loosen it up to get at that cable. So now we're gonna loosen up the brake cable. Pull that cable tip off. And we'll just pull the housing out because it's dry as a bone. Okay, so this can be tricky. Put the sleeve right at the end of the cable and then slide it in. Push it through, there we go. Slicker than snot on a doorknob. Don't forget the boot. And then I like to just do a temporary anchor here. We're gonna adjust the brake later anyway, but just so things don't get knocked around too much. That's just kind of in place now. Front derailleur still needs to be done. Front derailleur cable, that is. Pull that one out. Same deal. Pull super hard, put it right in its home. Grab my 14mm wrench here. Snug up that kickstand. They're always loose. Spray some lube up in there. Gonna floss my nether regions. Polishing as I go. Bottle screws. These are the rusty old bottle screws. All right, I'm gonna clean them up. Okay, over here at the grinder, I'm gonna use my beefy needle nose. Grab it just like that. That looks pretty good. I'm putting a nice goop of grease on there. Get them started. Shiny, and then put a little drop of lube in each one. It'll keep rust from forming. Okay, back up on the bike. We're gonna put the wheels back on. So I always tighten my skewers down. I got a pretty good feel for it because this one's just perfect. But as soon as it's starting to fight back when it's sticking straight out at 90 degrees, I know it's tight enough. Lock it into place. And I always look here and up here to make sure that things are in straight. Give it a double check. Check the hub. The hubs felt pretty good. I checked them before. I mean, I can feel them. I don't always adjust hubs. I know a lot of people do. Okay, I'm just checking that rear brake. It's super loose. Holding one side of the skewer, turning the other. That's too tight, so I'm gonna loosen it from the left side. That's a little too tight, not too bad. Boom. Reconnect that front brake, which we know is loose because I did that on purpose. And we have ourselves a bike. I should be able to handle this rear brake with a screwdriver and a 5mm. I'll loosen the anchor here, pull through the slack, and then I'll let out about that much. Give it a good snug. Okay, that's too tight. I don't know how to explain what I like. I go by feel. That feels a little too loose. So somewhere in between those two spots. Right there. That's perfect. I'm hearing a lot of creaking from this lever, which is coming from right there. No more creaking. Okay, and then if I stand on my tippy toes, you can see the brake is only pulling from one side. I'm just gonna tighten this down. You can see I got a lot of threads in here. I can tighten that a little bit more there. So I kind of hook my finger around and pull it, help it move over. Oh yeah, that really changed it. Can do the same over there. That just kind of gets that lube worked down into the cracks. Okay, so now you can see it's pulling a little bit too much from this side. So we're gonna back this screw out just a smidge. That's pretty good. That's really good. I'm gonna leave it. Let's do the drivetrain. So when it's this dusty, and actually in most of these refurbishing bikes, I just spray it with the aerosol. This upsets people. Don't know why. So now I have a dirtier rag to clean this chain. Now we have a clean chain. Woo, that was smooth. Wipe down that mega range. You know what else I might do? Just get some of the dust off of there. Dawn power wash to kind of clean the dust off of the crank. It's not a real cleaning, more just a let's try to make it look less dirty. So we have everything lubed. This SRAM 5.0 shifting is really nice. This derailleur looks like it's angled inward a bit. Get back here, loosen the clamp, and then I'll straighten it a little. This is gonna change everything. So, I mean, I'm sure it was working fine, but this makes it righter. So the derailleur cable is pretty tight. So I'm gonna come up here to the barrel adjuster, turning it in, that'll loosen the cable a little bit. And then I can see how the chain is rubbing down here. So here's the low limit screw. I'm gonna turn it out and move that cage over just a little bit. Let's see how I created a gap. Okay, we're gonna go all the way up into the low gear and back. Check the gap, and there's still a little gap there. So, and then I'm checking, I'm feeling my cable's feeling okay tight. Okay, and we're gonna loosen the high limit a little bit, and that'll allow the cage to push out a little bit more. It's still a little sluggish. I'm gonna take some of the slack out of the cable with my lever up here. Just a turn or so. Okay, now we're gonna shift the back, now that we've got it in the high gear. And we can just check to make sure we're not over shifting or under shifting. Still good. This pivot feels a little sticky. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to adjust things if it's not lubricated. Okay, it's wanting to overshift. If you see that right here. So that's a limit screw thing. So it's the top screw, is the low gear. Ooh, that's way better. So that was, yeah, way better. Okay, we got her sorted. Well, that took a little bit more adjusting than I originally had thought. It felt pretty good, but we made some improvements. I like it, and the front is good. So that's it for the shifting, huh? Let's do that front brake. So the front brake, we left really loose before. Okay, and I want to make sure that both levers are about the same. So I just kind of grab both of them at the same time and feel. And it feels like this one could be a little bit tighter. So we'll go through and loosen the anchor and just a smidge. Just a scotch. Woo! Yeah, buddy, that feels good. And then this, so you can see it's just pulling from this side. So we're gonna just loosen that a smidge. It doesn't want to turn. Let's tighten this one. That's really good. Also, what I'm doing there by spinning the front wheel and slamming the front brake is I'm feeling the headset. Oh, I grabbed the wrong wrench. Let's see if we can crimp it. It's actually a pretty good crimper. All right. And then tuck it away for safekeeping. Pretty quiet. One thing we've got here is just a little bit of steel wool, and it's got some coating on it here. There's some pitting, and it's not really coming off. I'm just gonna make that worse. We'll live with it. Grab a moderately dirty rag. You know, this has some grease and grime and polish and stuff on it. It actually works pretty good just as a general polishing, because it's tacky too, so it gets all the dust and grime off. And just tighten these guys down just a little bit, just a wee poke. Give it a feel. Okay. So this is a brand new clean rag, dry as a bone. And if you go through at the end and just wipe off that film that's kind of on everything, it really brings out some shine. It's like waxing a car and removing the wax. And it's just kind of like in the paint. One thing I like to do is go through and just check things a little bit. So give that a cinch. Okay, we can check your levers. Pedals. Crank bolts. I would put this bike late 90s, maybe 2000. Back in my bike shop prime, I used to assemble these. Very nice. All right. A final walkthrough, you can see how much cleaner, how everything's shiny. Look at that. The crank is clean. It's not all filthy. Everything's working great. The brakes feel wonderful. Somebody's getting a really nice bike here. You know? Even the saddle's in good shape. We'll just leave it. Everything's tight. Everything's good. What a nice bike. This one really made me happy. There we have it, bike farmers. Giant Cypress, the crown jewel of the cycling industry. I think the Giant Cypress is and always has been the single most practical bike out there. Giant was really, really good at the hybrid game early on when it first came on the scene, right in the late 80s, early 90s. Came out with this and they've kind of been iterating it as they go. And the new ones are amazing. These 20-year-old hybrids are some of my favorite bikes ever built. This one was just a pleasure to work on. It was really just dirty and dry. It's extraordinarily satisfying for me to take one of these bikes that somebody didn't want, and with a little bit of cleaning, lube, and adjustment, this thing is truly better than brand new. Thank you so much for clicking in. If you want to support the channel, the best way to do that is by subscribing, like this, share it, click the notification bell so you and your bike can stay tuned.